Thanks for stopping by. This is Dr. Bad Vibes. I have news. It's apparently Florida week. Still got Florida news. And what's more poetic than trash coming down from space and landing in Florida? It's like it was meant to be. So, trash from the International Space Station may have hit a house in Florida. NASA collected the item to confirm whether it came from the International Space Station. Don't know what that is. I hope it's not space poop. So, a few weeks ago, something from the heavens came crashing through the roof of a man's home, and NASA is on the case. In all likelihood, this nearly 2-pound object came from the International Space Station. He said it tore through the roof and both floors of his 2-story house in Florida. Yeah, good thing he wasn't near that. Wow. So he wasn't home at the time, but his son was there. A home security camera captured the sound of the crash, and that's an important piece of information because it's a close match for the time that U.S. Space Command recorded the re-entry of a piece of space debris from the space station. At that time, the object was on a path over the Gulf of Mexico, heading toward southwest Florida. This space junk consisted of depleted batteries from the ISS attached to a cargo pallet that was originally supposed to come back to Earth in a controlled manner, but a series of delays meant this cargo pallet missed its ride back to Earth. So NASA jettisoned the batteries from the space station in 2021 to head for an unguided entry. Yeah, okay, it's like, is this an old article? No, so this, I mean, obviously, if things are in space, they can orbit for a while. So this was thrown away in 2021, and it took it 3 years to make it to Earth. So engineers at NASA's Kennedy Space Center will analyze the object as soon as possible to determine its origin. More information will be available once the analysis is complete. So when it happened on March 8th, noting most of the material from the batteries in the cargo carrier would have likely burned up as they plunged through the atmosphere. Temperatures would have reached several thousand degrees, vaporizing most of the material before it could reach the ground. So the entire pallet, including the 9 disused batteries from the space station's power system, had a mass of more than 2.6 metric tons. That's 5,800 pounds. Size-wise, it was about twice as tall as a standard kitchen refrigerator. It's important to note that objects of this mass or larger regularly fall to Earth on guided trajectories, but they're usually failed satellites or spent rocket stages left in orbit after completing their missions. In a post on X, aka Twitter, he said he was waiting for communication from the responsible agencies to resolve the cost of damages to his home. So that's the item in question. We saw that. Oh, that's his roof, I think. It looks like so I'm trying to figure out, is that concrete? Either way, it's yeah, it looks like concrete, or at least a part of the roof. Went through the floor, through the ceiling. Yeah, good thing nobody was in the way of that. That could have been horrible. So yeah, it looks like he took to Twitter. It says, "Hello, looks like one of those pieces missed Fort Myers and landed in my house in Naples. Tore through the roof and went through 2 floors. Almost hit my son. Can you please assist with getting NASA to connect with me? I've left messages and emails without a response." It's like, hey, your spaceship hit my house. Call me back. So if the object is owned by NASA, Taro or his insurance company could make a claim against the federal government under the Federal Tort Claims Act, according to the executive director of the Center for Air and Space Law. I want to practice space law. It gets more interesting if this material is discovered to be not originally from the United States, she told. If it is a human-made space object which was launched into space by another country which caused damage on Earth, that country would absolutely be liable to the homeowner for the damage caused. This could be an issue in this case. The batteries were owned by NASA, but they were attached to a pallet structure launched by Japan Space Agency. So everybody's going to pass the buck. Is that what they're saying? So how did this happen? At the time of the March 8th re-entry, a NASA spokesperson at the Johnson Space Center in Houston said the space agency, quote, conducted a thorough debris analysis assessment on the pallet and has determined it will harmlessly re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. This was by far the most massive object ever tossed overboard from the International Space Station. We do not expect any portion to have survived re-entry. However, research from other space experts did not match NASA's statement. The Aerospace Corporation, a federally funded research and development center, said a general rule of thumb is that 20 to 40% of the mass of a large object will reach the ground. The exact percentage depends on the design of the object, but these nickel hydrogen batteries are made of metals with relatively high density. Ahead of the re-entry, the European Space Agency also acknowledged some fragments from the battery pallet may survive to the ground, so they knew. NASA typically doesn't want large chunks of space debris falling to Earth. With an uncontrolled entry, you can trace the reason this object came down unguided back to a Russian launch failure more than 5 years ago. Why is all this past stuff coming to haunt the future, man? See, NASA astronaut and Russian commander aborted their launch on a Soyuz spacecraft when the rocket failed shortly after liftoff. One of the jobs on the International Space Station would have been to go outside on spacewalks to help install a new set of lithium-ion batteries, recently delivered by a Japanese HTV cargo ship. But he didn't reach the space station in 2018, so NASA put off the spacewalks until a new team of astronauts arrived at the complex. This interruption to the space station's carefully choreographed schedule threw off the entire multi-year plan for upgrading the batteries to the electrical system. Instead of putting the old batteries back in the HTV for a guided destructive re-entry over the open ocean, NASA held onto the cargo pallet at the station. So each of the subsequent HTV missions delivered more fresh batteries to the space station and then departed the complex with the cargo pallet and decommissioned the batteries from the previous HTV mission. This was the case until there were no more HTVs to fly. Japan's last HTV spacecraft departed the ISS in 2020, with the cargo pallet and batteries from the prior flight stranding the last battery pallet at the station. So basically, the garbage truck never came. So the space station's other cargo vehicles, the SpaceX Dragon, Northrop Grumman's Cygnus, and the Russian Progress can't accommodate these pallets. So NASA just said, screw it, we'll throw it out. So it actually, literally, it has a robotic arm. They threw it out into space, and they're like, all right, well, we'll throw it out. It'll burn up. But we see what happened. So it's a rare event. And if NASA confirms the projectile that fell through Otero's house last month came from the ISS, it would join a small handful of incidents where an object falling out of orbit damaged someone's property. Yeah, I mean, Earth is a big place. On the flip side, falling space debris has never killed anyone. The annual risk of an individual human being injured by space debris is less than 1 in 100 billion. Still more likely than winning the lottery, but, you know, be careful. If you need something else to be afraid of, you'll be fine. There are a few more examples of damage. Oh, let's check these out. Let's see. In 2003, a foot-long metal bracket from the doomed space shuttle Columbia smashed through the roof of a dentist's office in Texas. Fortunately for those who work there, the Columbia accident happened on a Saturday when the office was closed. Oh, that's bad. I remember that happened too. That was awful. An Oklahoma resident named, whatever, I don't like to do names, was struck in the shoulder by a lightweight piece of material in 1997 that experts linked to the re-entry of the upper stage from a Delta II rocket. It was a glancing blow, and the air helped slow down the piece of debris, so she escaped injury. There was also an incident in 1969 when a fragment from a Soviet spacecraft reportedly hit a small Japanese ship near the coast of Siberia, injuring 5 people. Well, if we need something else to be afraid of, shit falling from space, watch out. Well, garbage landed in Florida. Is anybody shocked? Be careful when you walk outside. Shit can fall from space and land on you. 1 out of 100 billion times.